My name's Adam. I'm 31 years old, and I guess you could say I've always had a complicated relationship with my mom. Complicated in the sense that I've spent most of my adult life trying to earn a version of love that I don't think ever really existed for me. I'm not sure exactly when I became the lesser child. Maybe it was gradual, like erosion. A thousand tiny paper cuts that eventually left something hollow behind. Or maybe it was always there, and I just didn't want to believe it. My younger sister, Chloe, 3 years my junior, has always been the golden one. Ever since we were kids, she's been the one to get the praise, the hugs, the benefit of the doubt. I'd get the lectures, the disappointment, the silence. But despite all that, I still kept trying. I told myself that one day, I'd finally do something big enough to make her see me. I've done all right for myself. I work in tech, built my way up from an unpaid internship to a six-figure salary over the last decade. I don't flaunt it. I've always been the kind of guy who keeps his head down and lets the work speak. But last month, I got a huge bonus, more than I'd ever gotten before. And after paying off the last of my own student loans and putting some aside for savings, I had a chunk left over. And for some reason, despite everything, I thought of my mom. She's been living in the same crumbling two-bedroom house for 25 years. Roof leaks in the spring, furnace dies every third winter, and the porch is so tilted it looks like it's about to give up. She's always dreamed of something better, but money's always been tight. And I thought, maybe this is the moment. Maybe if I hand her the down payment for her dream house, no strings attached, maybe that'll be the gesture that finally matters. So I planned the whole thing. Quietly, I got in touch with a real estate agent in her area. Found a beautiful place just outside town. Modern kitchen, a little garden out back, and best of all, one story, so she wouldn't have to worry about stairs as she got older. I put a hold on it with the agent and made sure everything was lined up. The check for the down payment, $45,000, was already in an envelope in my backpack. I even had a little speech rehearsed in my head. I was going to show up on Saturday morning, take her for coffee, and tell her she didn't have to worry about repairs or mortgages anymore. That she deserved something nice. I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized that I had done that for her. That maybe, finally, I'd be enough. I drove through the night, 12 hours on the road from my apartment in the city to the town I grew up in. Got in around 9 a.m., bleary-eyed but buzzing with anticipation. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was already there, and so was Chloe's. That gave me pause. I hadn't told anyone I was coming, but of course Chloe just happened to be visiting the same weekend. I parked behind them and grabbed my bag, the check inside feeling like it was burning a hole in the fabric. As I walked up the familiar path to the front door, I heard voices and laughter from inside. I knocked gently. A few seconds later, the door swung open, and there she was. But she didn't look at me. Not at first. She looked past me, behind me, like she expected someone else. Then her eyes landed on mine, and she gave a small, surprised, "Oh," like she'd just seen a neighbor she barely remembered. Before I could say a word, Chloe came bounding from the kitchen, arms open, practically glowing. "Mom, I told you he'd come," she squealed, throwing her arms around me in a quick hug, but then immediately stepping aside as our mother moved forward, straight past me, and wrapped Chloe in a hug so tight, you'd think she'd just come home from war. "My sweet girl," my mom whispered, stroking Chloe's hair. "I'm so glad you're here. You always make everything better." I stood there, bag in hand, mouth slightly open. And then came the moment that made my stomach flip. My mom turned to me finally, smiled politely, and said, "Adam, since you're here, maybe you could help Chloe go over the repair list." I wrote down everything that needs to be done around here. Pipes, the roof, the porch. Maybe you can help pitch in, since your sister's already offered. I didn't say anything. Not right away. I just nodded slowly and followed them inside. Chloe plopped down on the couch like she owned the place, flipping through some bridal magazine she'd brought with her. She was engaged again, and from the way my mom doted on her, you'd think she was royalty. They chatted about venues, flowers, how Chloe's fiancé just got a raise, how she's thinking about moving to the city to finally start taking herself seriously. And my mom just beamed through it all like Chloe had personally invented the sun. I sat quietly on the armrest of the recliner, gripping the strap of my bag like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to the floor. The envelope with the check was still inside. My little speech about the house, the surprise, the relief I wanted to give her, it all sat there, growing heavier with each passing minute. I thought maybe there would be a moment, a pause, a chance to pull my mom aside and say, "Hey, I came here for you." But that moment never came. Instead, after lunch, my mom pulled out a legal pad with a list of home repairs, columned out with prices. "I added estimates," she said brightly, handing it to me like it was a birthday card. "You're so good with finances. Maybe you can cover some of these?" Chloe's already offered to get the new washing machine. I looked down at the list. The total was nearly $10,000. And there wasn't a single word of gratitude in her tone, just expectation, like she was reading off a grocery list. That's when I knew. I knew the check wasn't going to her. Not anymore. I calmly folded the paper, slipped it back on the table, and stood up. Chloe didn't notice. I don't even think she looked up from her phone. But my mom did. "You're not going already, are you?" she asked, frowning. "You just got here." "I've got some stuff to take care of," I said quietly. "Just wanted to check in." She waved absently, already turning back to Chloe. "All right. Be sure to say goodbye before you go." I left the house without another word. Got in my car, drove 5 blocks, and parked in an empty lot. Just sat there for almost an hour, letting the weight of everything settle in. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just felt tired. Tired of proving myself to someone who never really saw me. Tired of trying to earn a love that always seemed reserved for someone else. I opened the bag, took out the envelope with the $45,000 check, and stared at it. Then I picked up my phone and called the realtor. "Hey," I said. "Yeah, can you go ahead and cancel the deal?" Something came up. That was 3 days ago. This morning, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. "Hey, do you know why the realtor backed out? I thought we were still moving forward. Chloe told me you were handling it." I stared at the message for a long while before I finally responded. "Ask Chloe." And then I put my phone face down. The message sat there unread for almost an hour. Then it got marked as seen, but no reply came. I half expected a barrage of calls or at least a guilt-tripping follow-up, but there was nothing. Just silence. And strangely, that silence felt louder than anything she could have said. It confirmed what I think I already knew. This wasn't about disappointment. It wasn't even about confusion. It was about control, about expectation, about a mother who saw one child as her legacy and the other as her labor. By the afternoon, Chloe called me. Twice. I didn't pick up. Then a third time. When I finally answered, I didn't say anything. Just let the line hang until she spoke. "Hey," she said, her voice just a little too light. "So, Mom's kind of freaking out." I didn't respond. I could hear the TV in the background on her end. She was probably still at Mom's house, lounging on the couch like always. "She said the realtor canceled the whole house thing? And that it had something to do with you?" There was a pause. "You were going to buy her a new house?" "Since when?" "Since a few weeks ago," I said flatly. "Before you handed me a repair bill like I was her handyman." There was a beat of silence. Then she laughed, soft, incredulous. "Wait, are you serious? That's what this is about." I didn't say anything. "Adam," she said, switching to that faux calming voice she always used when trying to sound reasonable while still being wildly condescending. "Come on. You know how Mom is. She didn't mean anything by it. You're just sensitive." I clenched my jaw. That word. Sensitive. The one they always used to explain away how I felt when they crossed a line. The label slapped on me since I was 10 years old and cried when Mom forgot my birthday but threw Chloe a whole garden party 2 months later. "You don't get it," I said finally. "You've never had to get it. You've always been first. Always been right. Always been the one she's proud of." I've spent years trying to prove I was worth something to her, and the one time I actually could have given her everything she ever wanted, she handed me a to-do list like I was the repair guy. "That's not fair," Chloe shot back. "She's old. She's stressed. She's been through a lot. We all have," I cut in. "But she doesn't treat you like a wallet. She brags about you. She lights up when you walk into the room. When it's me, she looks like she's waiting for me to say something wrong. Like she's tolerating me." "Adam, I'm not doing it anymore," I said. "I'm done trying." I drove 500 miles with a check that could have changed her life. She didn't even ask why I was there. There was another long silence. Then, more quietly, "So what happens now?" "I don't know," I said. "But I'm not the one who has to figure it out anymore." I hung up. Later that evening, I got a message from my mom. Not a call, not a voicemail, just a short text. Did I do something wrong? That question, somehow, broke something in me. Not because she asked it, but because I knew she didn't actually want the answer. It wasn't a genuine moment of self-reflection. It was a deflection, a bid for sympathy, a subtle way to make me feel like I was the one overreacting, like I'd taken things the wrong way. Again, I didn't answer. Instead, I took the check and shredded it. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I was making a decision for myself, not for her approval, not for her affection, not to be enough. Just for me. I booked a flight back instead of driving, left the car in long-term parking, and checked into a hotel for the night before the flight. I needed space, not just physical distance, but emotional room to breathe. That night, as I lay in bed, I scrolled through old photos. One caught my eye, me at 7 years old, standing next to Chloe at her birthday party. She had a huge cake, a new dress, and a crown. I had a paper plate and an awkward smile. I don't even remember if I got a slice. I stared at that photo for a long time. And then, I blocked both of them. Not because I was angry, but because I was tired of begging to be seen. And because sometimes, the best kind of peace comes when you stop knocking on the same locked door. The next few weeks passed in a strange, suspended calm. My phone was eerily quiet. No texts, no voicemails, no, just checking in messages from my mom or Chloe. At first, I thought maybe they were giving me space, but deep down, I knew better. It wasn't space. It was silence as a strategy. The cold shoulder dressed up as dignity. I knew how my family worked. If you didn't play your role, you got written out of the script. And since I wasn't being the generous, obedient son anymore, I guess they decided to hit pause until I came crawling back. Again. But I didn't crawl back. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I went back to work. I'd buried myself in projects, picked up a side contract, started hitting the gym again. Little things to remind myself that my life wasn't tethered to their approval. Still, some nights, it would hit me out of nowhere, this dull ache in my chest, like grief, but without the death. Like I was mourning a version of family that never really existed, except in my head. Then, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook notification. Chloe had tagged me in a post, which was weird because I'd muted her ages ago, and especially weird considering I had blocked her number. But apparently, she was still able to tag me on social media. The post was a picture of her and my mom standing in front of the old house, both beaming like they just won the lottery. The caption read, "Making memories in the home that built us. Nothing like a little elbow grease and family teamwork to make it shine again." I stared at it for a long time. The comments were pouring in. Distant cousins, high school friends, family friends I hadn't heard from in years, all leaving glowing replies. "So sweet. Love to see you all working together. Your brother is such a good man for stepping up to help your mom." And then came the kicker. A comment from Chloe herself, replying to someone who asked if the repairs were going okay. Yep. Adam was so generous. He covered most of it. Mom's finally feeling hopeful again. I felt the blood rush to my face. My hands clenched without meaning to. I hadn't given them a dime. Not one. And yet, here they were, publicly crafting this fairy tale where I was the dutiful son, the silent benefactor, the dependable background character in Chloe's happily ever after. The comments just kept coming. People praising them for their strength, their bond, their love as mother and daughter. And me? I was just a name being dragged through the story as the convenient, silent donor. The problem wasn't just the lie. It was the complete rewriting of reality. I had walked away. They ignored it. They filled in the blank space with whatever version of me suited their image. And then, just as I was about to log off, I noticed something else. The realtor I'd worked with? She had posted a public story on her own page a few days prior, something about clients who waste your time, back out at the last second, then vanish without even a thank you. She didn't name names. But she didn't need to. One of the replies underneath said, "I bet you were dealing with the Martins family. Total nightmare." She liked it. I sat there, jaw tightening. So that's how it was. Not only had they turned me into the scapegoat in private, but now they were letting others believe I was the flaky, selfish one who backed out of helping them. I wasn't just being erased. I was being rebranded. And here's the part that hit hardest. That house? The dream house I had picked for my mom? The one I was ready to put $45,000 down on? It had sold. The listing was gone. Someone else had moved in. I checked the date. It had gone off the market just 5 days after I canceled the deposit. She could have had it. She could have had everything. But instead, she'd turned me into a villain to protect her pride. I closed my laptop and just sat there. It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about what it represented. An attempt, maybe the last one, to show her that I mattered. That I saw her, cared about her, wanted to build something better. But instead of gratitude, I got rewritten. And I wasn't going to let that stand. Not this time. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't comment or message Chloe or call my mom to yell. No, I was done playing defense. I opened a new document and started typing something I'd never dared to write before. Something public. Something they wouldn't be able to brush off, ignore, or quietly twist behind my back. Because if they wanted to use my name to make themselves look good, then they were going to have to deal with what came next. So I wrote it. Not out of spite. Not for drama. I wrote it for clarity. For truth. For all the times I'd been gaslit into thinking I was too sensitive or imagining things. I wrote it to finally put everything in the open, not just for others to see, but for myself. It started as a simple status post on Facebook, but it quickly turned into something longer, more honest than I expected. I didn't write it to be petty. I didn't name call. I just told the story, plainly and quietly. 3 weeks ago, I drove 500 miles to surprise my mom with a down payment for her dream home. I had it all arranged. Found a house. Had the check written. All I wanted was to see her happy. Instead, she handed me a list of repairs for her current home, said nothing about why I was really there, and asked me to help, like Chloe already had. So I put the check back in my bag and left. I canceled the offer on the house. Since then, I've watched people post about how grateful they are, how family always comes through. But I didn't come through. I walked away, and I won't be guilted into silence for that decision anymore. Sometimes, walking away from people who never see you is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. I hit post. Within the hour, my inbox exploded. The first message came from my cousin Daniel, someone I hadn't talked to in years. Dude, I had no idea, he wrote. I always thought your mom was tough on you, but this is insane. Then came Aunt Melanie, mom's older sister. I'm ashamed to say I saw it, but never spoke up. You deserved better, Adam. Then friends, old high school classmates, even a few coworkers who had seen me push myself so hard over the years. One by one, they all replied with some variation of the same message. I get it now. But the message I expected the most, the one I braced for, came that evening. It was a text from Chloe. No emoji, no exclamation points. Just one cold sentence. You made mom cry. Hope it was worth it. I stared at it for a while, then typed back, I hope she reflects on why. Then I blocked her. For good. The next morning, I woke up to see my post had been shared over 700 times. A few local friends had even tagged the realtor I'd originally worked with, adding their own stories about my mom's behavior over the years, things I hadn't even known. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd mistreated. She just had a long pattern of using people until they stopped being useful. I thought I'd feel vindicated. But what I felt was peace. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need a dramatic showdown or teary apology. What I needed was to stop giving people a front row seat to my life when all they ever did was throw tomatoes at the stage. A few days later, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From my mom. It wasn't long. Just one page. Mostly vague statements about how she was hurt by the way I chose to handle things. No real ownership. No apology. Just a paragraph of self-pity wrapped in flowery language. But at the bottom, in a different pen, clearly written later, was a single sentence that felt raw and unedited. You were never supposed to stop trying. I stared at that sentence for a long time. That's when it all clicked. That's what I'd been to her. Not a son. Not a man with boundaries. I was a project. A performer. Someone expected to keep knocking, no matter how many times the door didn't open. And when I finally stopped, that was the betrayal. Not the house, not the check, not the post. It was the act of choosing myself. I folded the letter and burned it in the sink. No rage. No theatrics. Just finality. 2 months later, I bought a new home. For me. No big yard. No open floor plan. Just a quiet, well-lit condo near the lake, with a balcony big enough for a grill and a chair where I could sit on weekends and read. I started seeing a therapist. I learned to enjoy silence that didn't feel like punishment. I even adopted a dog, a lazy, affectionate golden retriever who greets me like a hero every time I walk through the door. Sometimes, when people ask if I'm close with my family, I say, we used to be, in a way. And then I change the subject. Not because it hurts, but because I've finally accepted that you don't owe your peace to people who made you earn their love like a paycheck. Some doors don't need to be knocked on again. Some stories don't need rewrites. And some sons learned that being enough was never the problem, being seen was. I never thought I'd have a story for this sub, but after what happened at my last family reunion, I think I finally do. For context, my name is Ryan, and I'm 26. My family is complicated. I wouldn't call them outright toxic, but they have this unshakable tendency to put people into neat little boxes based on outdated ideas of success. If you're a doctor, lawyer, or businessman, you're a golden child. If you chose a different path, especially one that doesn't fit their idea of prestige, you're a joke. Guess which category they put me in? I work in digital marketing. Not the glamorous, high-end corporate kind, but the type that involves freelancing, content creation, and helping small businesses grow online. It's a job I love. I make good money, more than enough to support myself, but because it doesn't come with an impressive title or an office in some high-rise building, my family never took it seriously. I'm used to the passive-aggressive comments, the little digs, the condescending questions about whether I have a real job yet. Normally, I just let it slide. But this time, something changed. The family reunion was held at my Aunt Linda's house, a big two-story place with a backyard large enough to fit 3 generations of relatives. These gatherings happened every summer, and I had learned to manage my expectations. I enjoyed seeing my younger cousins, my grandma, and the handful of relatives who weren't insufferable. But I also knew I'd have to endure the inevitable interrogation about my life choices. Uncle Mike was the worst about it. He was my dad's older brother, a man who had built his entire identity around being the successful sibling. He ran a car dealership, though from what I'd heard through the grapevine, it wasn't doing all that well. Didn't matter. To him, success wasn't about how well you were actually doing. It was about looking the part, wearing the right suit, driving the right car, having the right title. I was sitting at one of the patio tables, chatting with my cousin Jake about a trip he had just taken to Italy, when I heard the all-too-familiar voice behind me. Well, if it isn't the family disappointment. The words hit like a slap, loud enough for everyone around to hear. Conversation slowed. A few people chuckled awkwardly, the kind of laugh people give when they don't want to be part of something but also don't want to challenge it. I forced a smile before turning around. Good to see you too, Uncle Mike. He had his usual drink in hand, sunglasses perched on his head, the smugness practically radiating off of him. You still doing that internet stuff? He asked, waving his hand vaguely. You know, my buddy's kid just got a job at a big firm. Finance. Real money. But he's making a lot more than whatever TikTok nonsense you do. I exhaled slowly, already regretting being here. I don't do TikTok. I work in digital marketing. Right? Marketing. He turned to my dad, who was sitting nearby. Remember when Ryan wanted to be an engineer? Man, what a downgrade, huh? More laughter. I glanced at my mom, hoping she'd say something, but she just gave me that look, the one that meant don't make a scene. Mike grinned, clearly enjoying himself. Hey, at least he's not in jail or homeless, right? We should be grateful for the little things. And that was when I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. I pushed my chair back and stood up, feeling my heart pound in my chest. Slowly, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The table went quiet. You know, Uncle Mike, I said, my voice steady but sharp. I wasn't going to say anything. But since we're talking about success, maybe it's time the whole family knew a little secret. Mike's smirk faltered. I tapped the screen. The silence stretched across the patio. Conversations had died, and I could feel the weight of every gaze shifting toward me. My uncle's smirk wavered, but he recovered quickly, letting out a short, dismissive laugh. Oh, come on, Ryan, he scoffed. What? You gonna Google something to prove me wrong? Maybe show us some made-up numbers from whatever website you run? I ignored him and held up my phone, the screen glowing in the evening light. My hands were steady now. I wasn't backing down. You like talking about success, right? I said, my voice even. You like comparing careers? Fine. Let's compare. I turned the screen toward him. It was a screenshot. My most recent invoice from a client, one of the biggest contracts I'd ever landed. The total amount? $22,500. A murmur rippled through the family. Someone let out a low whistle. My younger cousin, Jake, leaned forward, eyes wide. No way. That's legit. I nodded. 1 month. From one client. For the first time in my life, I saw something unfamiliar flicker across Uncle Mike's face, uncertainty. He scoffed, but it didn't have the same bite as before. Well, sure, but that's just one big payout. No way that's consistent. It's not like you have a stable job or benefits or, I swiped again, pulling up my earnings tracker for the year. I tilted the phone so he could see. $190,000. More whispers. More eyes widening. Holy, Jake started, but my aunt shot him a look before he could finish. Uncle Mike swallowed, his expression shifting, but he wasn't ready to give up yet. That doesn't mean I cut him off. Now, let's talk about your dealership. His face paled. I glanced down at my phone again, scrolling to something else. See, I wasn't going to bring this up, because unlike you, I don't think someone's entire worth is based on their job. But since you clearly do, let's go over a few things. I tapped the screen, and this time, I wasn't showing an invoice. I was showing a news article. And right there, in bold letters, was the headline, "Local car dealership under investigation for fraudulent loan practices." The silence that followed was absolute. The color drained from Uncle Mike's face. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. The entire patio was silent, every pair of eyes locked onto the headline glowing from my phone screen. Aunt Linda was the first to break the silence. What is that? I turned the phone so she and everyone else could see it clearly. It's an article from 2 weeks ago. Talks about a certain car dealership that's been under investigation for shady financing practices, falsifying loan applications, inflating interest rates without customer consent, repossessing cars over clerical errors that weren't actually errors. I looked up, locking eyes with Uncle Mike. Sound familiar? His face was now a shade of red I'd never seen before. That's just rumors, he snapped, though his voice lacked its usual bravado. Some foolish customers didn't read their contracts, and now they want to blame the business. The media will print anything these days. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? I swiped again and pulled up another screenshot, this time from the Better Business Bureau. A full page of formal complaints against his dealership, each one detailing nearly the exact same fraudulent tactics mentioned in the article. I read one out loud. I was told my loan was approved at 4.2%, only to find out later they had signed me at 9.7% without my knowledge. When I confronted them, they threatened to repossess my car unless I paid cash up front. I glanced at him. Classy business move, Uncle Mike. Someone sucked in a breath. My dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mike let out a forced laugh, but it sounded strangled. This is ridiculous. You can't believe everything you read online. Sure, I said, nodding. Except for the part where the state attorney general is now involved. I swiped one last time and pulled up a legal document, a public filing from the attorney general's office, confirming an active investigation into fraudulent lending practices at his dealership. Uncle Mike froze. My stomach was a knot of adrenaline, but I kept my voice calm. So tell me again, Uncle Mike, who's the family disappointment here? The murmurs turned into full-blown whispers. My Aunt Linda looked mortified. My mom had her hand over her mouth. Even my dad, who had never once stood up for me in these family gatherings, was looking at his brother like he'd just seen him for the first time. Uncle Mike clenched his jaw, his fists tightening at his sides. You don't know what you're talking about, he muttered, but the fight in his voice was gone. I shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe the entire family just found out that the guy who's been lecturing me about real jobs is facing potential fraud charges. Silence. Then my cousin Jake, bless him, let out a low whistle. Damn, Ryan, you really did your homework. I pocketed my phone and gave Uncle Mike one last look. Yeah, turns out, researching things is part of my internet job. And with that, I turned and walked back inside. I didn't need to hear what happened next. The damage was done. I didn't stick around after that. The moment I stepped inside the house, I grabbed my keys and walked straight out the front door. I wasn't in the mood for more fake laughter, awkward glances, or hushed conversations about what had just happened. I had said what I needed to say. Let them deal with it. As I drove away, I could still feel the tension in my chest. Years of biting my tongue, enduring the backhanded comments, letting them make me feel like I wasn't enough. It had all built up to that moment. And for once, I didn't regret standing up for myself. Still, I wasn't expecting what happened next. A week later, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Uncle Mike. I let it ring. A minute later, another call. Then a third. Then a text. Ryan, we need to talk. Call me back. It's important. I ignored it. Whatever mess he had found himself in, it wasn't my problem. Then another text came through. Please. That made me pause. Mike was a lot of things. Arrogant, condescending, full of himself, but he wasn't the type to say please. Curious, I answered his next call. Ryan. He started immediately, his voice low, almost urgent. Listen, kid, I know things got heated at the reunion, but I need to talk to you about something serious. I didn't say anything, just waited. He cleared his throat. I might be in a little bit of a financial bind. I almost laughed. A bind? He exhaled sharply, like he was trying to keep himself from losing his temper. Yeah, a bind. Look, you obviously keep track of things online. You know about the investigation. It's complicated. The legal fees alone are ruining me, and the bad press has scared off a lot of customers. If I don't come up with some serious cash soon, I could lose everything. I leaned back in my chair. And what does this have to do with me? There was a long pause. Then, with what sounded like actual reluctance, he said, I need a loan. I blinked. A loan? Just something to hold me over, he rushed on. I know you're doing well for yourself. You proved that at the reunion. You've got the money, Ryan. I just need a little help to get through this rough patch. I let his words hang in the air for a moment, pretending to consider them. Then I said, You mean you need help from the family disappointment? Silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end. He knew exactly what I was doing. Ryan, he said finally, his voice tight. I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't serious. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered every insult. Every time he mocked my career. Every time he made me feel like I was lesser because I didn't fit into his narrow idea of success. I took a slow breath. And then I made my decision. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling for a moment while I let the silence stretch. I wanted him to sit in it, to really feel it, to understand what it was like to be on the other end of his treatment, what it was like to be the one asking for something and not knowing if he'd get it. Then, finally, I exhaled. You know, Mike, it's funny. For years, I've listened to you run your mouth about me, about my job, about how I'm supposedly some kind of failure. I chuckled, shaking my head. And now here we are. The successful businessman is calling the disappointment because he needs money. His voice hardened instantly. I wouldn't have to call you if things weren't so complicated, Ryan. You think I planned for this? No, I said. But I did. That shut him up. I continued, my voice calm, measured. See, while you were busy playing the big shot at family gatherings, laughing at my so-called internet job, I was actually planning for my future. I built something sustainable. I saved money. I invested. I didn't blow it all on fancy cars and golf trips. His breath hitched slightly, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. You have no idea what it takes to run a business, he snapped. Maybe not a car dealership under investigation for fraud. I shot back. He growled, and I could practically hear him grinding his teeth on the other end. Ryan, listen to me, he said, forcing his voice to sound controlled. I get it, okay? You had your little mic drop moment at the reunion. You made your point. But this isn't just about me. I've got a family to take care of. If I go under, a lot of people suffer. I scoffed. Now you care about people suffering? He ignored that. I'm asking for a loan, not a handout. I'll pay you back. With interest. We can even put it in writing if that makes you feel better. I let out a long sigh. And how exactly do you plan to pay me back, Mike? If your business is hemorrhaging money, if you're barely staying afloat, if you're already drowning in legal fees, where's my money supposed to come from? He hesitated. Things will turn around. I laughed, shaking my head. Yeah? You really think people are going to forget about all this? That customers will just magically trust you again? I have connections, Ryan, he snapped. I know people. Once this blows over, I'll be fine. Then ask those people for money, I said simply. Silence. And then, for the first time, I heard it. The sheer desperation in his breathing. He wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. He was panicking. Ryan, I can't ask them, he admitted, his voice low. They're already pulling away. Investors are backing out. My own business partner is talking about jumping ship. I don't have a lot of options left. I sat there, absorbing that. The invincible Uncle Mike, the self-proclaimed business genius, the same man who had spent years looking down on me, was now at his breaking point. He wasn't just struggling, he was sinking, and no one wanted to throw him a life raft. No one except me, if I wanted to. And that was the real kicker. Because the old me, the one who used to sit there and take his insults, that version of me might have felt bad, might have wanted to be the bigger person, might have thought, if I help him now, maybe he'll finally respect me. But I wasn't that person anymore. I exhaled slowly. I'm going to tell you something, Mike. And I want you to listen carefully. He didn't respond. I continued. For my entire life, you've treated me like I was beneath you. Every family gathering, every conversation, every time you opened your mouth, it was always the same. When are you going to get a real job, Ryan? When are you going to stop wasting your time? When are you going to grow up? His breathing was heavier now, but he stayed silent. I kept going, and I took it, for years, because I thought maybe, one day, you'd actually see me for who I am. That maybe, if I proved myself, you'd finally stop looking down on me. I let out a dry chuckle. And you know what? I did prove myself. I'm making more money than you ever did. I built something real. And now, the guy who mocked me for not having a real job is begging me for money. That one hit hard. I felt it through the phone. So tell me, Mike, I said, why would I help you now? His composure cracked. Because I'm your family. Ryan, he exploded. That's why? Because family doesn't turn their backs on each other. I let that hang in the air for a second before responding, my voice ice cold. Funny, you didn't seem to care about that when you were calling me the family disappointment. Silence. And then, I heard it. The shift. The moment his desperation turned into rage. Oh, I see how it is, he sneered. You're still some insecure little punk, aren't you? You think just because you got lucky with some internet money, you're better than me? I smirked. I don't think it, Mike. I know it. He lost it. You ungrateful little brat, he spat. I've been in business longer than you've been alive. You think your little online gig makes you smarter than me? You think it makes you successful? You're still just some nobody with a laptop, sitting in his apartment, pretending he's a big deal. Meanwhile, I built a real business. I had employees. I had assets. I had a business. I interrupted. Had. Past tense. The silence that followed was deafening. He was fuming, but I wasn't done yet. You want to talk about success, Mike? Let's talk about it. Because real success isn't just about money. It's about respect. It's about trust. And right now, you have neither. Your customers don't trust you. Your business partners don't trust you. Your own family doesn't trust you. And that's not because of me. That's because of you. He had nothing. No comeback. No defense. Just heavy, angry breathing. I let out a slow breath. You burned every bridge, Mike. You ran your mouth for years, and now, when you finally need help, there's no one left. And then, for the final blow, welcome to being the family disappointment. I hung up, and for the first time in years, I felt free. It's been a few months since that phone call, and honestly, I haven't heard much from Uncle Mike since. Word spread fast through the family that I refused to help him, and, predictably, there was some backlash. My mom called me a few days after it happened, saying I should have been the bigger person. My aunt tried to guilt-trip me with the whole "buddy's family" speech. A few cousins texted me, basically fishing for gossip. But here's the thing, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Mike wasn't some innocent guy who hit a rough patch. He was a grown man who spent his entire life belittling others while pretending he was untouchable. And when the walls finally closed in on him, he had the audacity to expect me, the person he looked down on the most, to save him. From what I've heard, things haven't improved for him. His business officially shut down, and the investigation against him is still ongoing. Last I checked, he had to sell his fancy car and downgrade his house. I don't know where he's getting the money to keep himself afloat, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's burning through whatever savings he has left. As for me, I'm doing great. Better than ever, actually. That whole situation made me realize just how far I've come. I spent so many years letting his words get to me, feeling like I had something to prove. But I don't anymore. I know my worth. I know what I've built. And I know that cutting off toxic family members, no matter how much society tells you to stick by them, is sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should have just given him the money, let bygones be bygones, and played the role of the bigger person. What do you think? Was I too harsh? Or did Uncle Mike get exactly what he deserved?